You've got John McMullen Jody McDonald. That makes it Mac and Mac. Oh, it's a triple back attack because we've got my buddy and pal and Sunday morning Bud from WIP, the host of the Eagles pregame show on their radio network. Been doing it for a long time. Been following the Birds for a long time. Glen Macnow jumps in with us here on Birds 365. G-Mac, you got Chiefs red on. They bust my chop.
You know what? I literally just realized that as the camera came on. It's an advertisement for myself. I didn't realize I could take it off.
No.
It's fine, Glenn. For the brand, baby.
Yeah, sorry,
push
fellas.
the brand. There's nothing wrong with that.
Take the dark red to indicate nothing.
Yeah,
I just
you thought you had a Kansas City spot instead of
no.
He's wearing green all week. All right, but since again, sorry about that. I just had a bunch of stuff.
Sorry, it's fine.
Eagles midnight green on Saturday. Are you like John and I that the uniform color war determines the outcome ahead of time, or do you not give a flying F?
More the second than the first, but I've seen stats. Aren't they 8-2 with the midnight green? Isn't that the record?
I believe so. They win every game, so it doesn't matter.
If they're 8-2 in midnight green, that means they're 9-1 and everything else.
The only thing is, and I love listening to Merrill and Mike, and before every game when Merrill announces the color combination, he gets upset if the Eagles are wearing, as he says, they're slow green pants. He hates the green pants. He thinks they run slower. The slow green pants, says Merrill.
You know, our buddy Reuben Frank, also on WIP at times, he was the one who said it, and because I'm the exact same way. If you get me 10 minutes after an Eagles game, I just spent 3 hours watching and charting. I couldn't tell you what they're wearing, Glenn. I could not tell you. 10 minutes after the game has ended. Jody saying it, I'll probably remember this time that they wore the green. But if you got me and didn't say it before the game, I would not be able to tell you.
All right, so my position is as long as they don't wear black, I'm cool.
All right, that works.
Jalen likes the black, though. He likes the black.
I get it. The players like the black.
Yeah.
Right.
As a traditionalist, I don't like the black.
All right, gotcha.
I think their record is good in black too, but again, it will be determined the winner by the talents and the skills and the coaching, much more so than the colors of the uniform. I'm sorry I even went there. All right, another question that will, in my mind, determine the outcome of the game. Will Chad Henne take a snap in this game, Glen Macnow?
He's not the holder, is he?
No.
Then the answer is no. He will not. He will not take a snap.
He's taking snaps in Kansas
We're
City.
going down some weird paths.
Before.
Yeah, listen, Mahomes has got the bad peg, and I don't know how it is. I'm sure they're doing everything to make it better. His leg could be severed at the knee, and he's going to finish that game, right? It's the Super Bowl. He's not going out.
All right, we're going down some weird paths, so I'll keep going down it, Glenn. If it is severed at the knee, and you got to go to Chad Henne or Gardner Minshew, who do you have more confidence in?
Oh gosh, Chad Henne, I do.
All right,
because he's the cagey veteran who's been around and seen everything, and he's less prone to make a mistake, which is kind of what that will boil down to. But you know what, John? It's not going to boil. Please tell me it's not. You got this elite matchup of great young quarterbacks, the future of the NFL. I don't want to see that.
No, I don't think anybody wants to, but ask the 49er fans. They wanted their rookie to finish the game last week, and Brock Purdy could not do so because Kyle Shanahan had a brain fart and decided to try and block the best pass rusher in the National Football League with a second-string tight end.
That's right.
So let's go there with a guy who actually can have a huge impact on the game. Can Hassan Reddick win MVP of the Super Bowl this week?
Ooh. It's so tough for a defensive player to win it, right? Was it maybe happened 3 times in history? Yeah. Was it Larry Brown? What was the name of the cornerback who won it?
Larry Brown,
Larry
Cowboys,
Brown,
yes.
Right. Howley, Chuck Howley, maybe way back in the day. If there's a third, I don't know.
You know, I hate to say this, as will tick off the Eagle fans. I think Ed Too Tall Jones shared it one year. I
I
think they
believe
had
you're right. Yeah. Jim.
dueling
Okay.
MVPs for the Cowboys. It's all Cowboy stuff.
Yeah. Well, the Eagle fans won't be upset. The Cowboys haven't been there in a quarter century, so they don't remember
You
that
have
the
to go back
Cowboys
into
are in the
history
league.
to recall
Right.
these.
Yeah.
events.
You got to be as old as us to remember those games.
Exactly.
Von Miller won it. 50.
Okay, Von Miller. So
Yeah.
the odds are really against it, but I would say this. If a defensive player is going to win the MVP of the Super Bowl, I would bet on Hassan Reddick. If we're having the pool where everybody gets to pick one defensive player, he's my guy. Either team, he's my guy.
And Malcolm Smith, we also got to give him some love. Malcolm Smith of Seattle had a pick six, fumble recovery, 10 tackles.
That was a really, as I recall, that was a really bad Super Bowl.
Yeah, Seattle blew him out. So,
yeah, and Malcolm Smith is, I guess it's the only way he's ever going to get to Canton.
But you're right. Obviously, it's typically an offensive award. So let's start with the quarterbacks. They have the inside track to the MVP. Great matchup, Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Glenn, is the best player in the NFL. I think most people can agree that, but he is banged up. Now, Jalen's banged up as well, but I'll say this about Jalen Hurts. And I'm not typically a guy who thinks win-loss is a quarterback stat, but bottom line is when Jalen Hurts is on the field, the Eagles win. They're 16-1 when Jalen Hurts is on the field this season. And the one loss against Washington was sort of the uncharacteristic turning it over. You know, they have the better roster in this game is my kind of take on it. Is Jalen Hurts in the better roster enough to overcome the best player, the most dynamic player in football?
I think you laid it out very accurately. And I know the spread is kind of moving between Eagles -2 and Pick'em. I don't know what it is this morning, but everybody sees this as a very, very close game, as do I. I think that Mahomes is the best player in the league. You said it. It's true. Jalen Hurts is an amazing young quarterback on the rise who is now one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. But if you look at the rest of the rosters, I think the Eagles have a better offensive line. I think the Eagles have a better defensive line. I think the Eagles have better skill position players to help Jalen Hurts. Maybe linebackers, secondary, you want to go push. But if you go 22 versus 22, and obviously not all 22 positions are created equal, but if you do, unit by unit, the Eagles have more talent and are a better team. So why not? They can win this thing 2 times in 5 years. See you on Broad Street.
That'd be pretty damn good. You mentioned the Eagles' advantage in the trenches, both offensive line, defensive line. That's comparing their offensive line to the Chiefs' offensive line. They're never on the field at the same time. So it's the defense, offense comparison, which means Andy Reid's going to be able to get a shot at the Eagles on both sides of the ball as well. And he's the guy who brought the philosophy of building it from the trenches out when he was here that the Eagles still subscribe to and benefit from because they've been that good at picking, choosing, and coaching up. Thanks, Coach Stoutland. The guys in the trenches. What do you think Andy's got up his sleeve? He believes it. He knows it. He instills it. But he does seem a little bit overmatched, which means he's got to come up with a tricky solution. What do you think he's going to try and do? First comparison, Chiefs defensive line against Eagles offensive line. We know how good a player Jones is, but is he going to go blitz? Is they're going to try and do something that just belies what they usually do because he knows he's a little overmatched against Eagles offensive line?
So the one thing that it will be curious to me to see is how much and how effectively Jalen Hurts is able to run, because he ran a little bit against the Niners and with limited success. Clearly, he didn't have to do it against the Giants, but it's a way that they've won this year. He's run 15 times a game. That game against the Packers, it was incredible what he did. I would like to believe, as an Eagles fan, that Jalen Hurts running the ball becomes a part of this game. If Andy Reid thinks the same way I do, I think what Andy tells his defensive linemen is don't over pursue. I'm going to worry less about the sack and more about kind of him getting out of the pocket. I'll do the old mush rush, keep him contained, things like that, and that would be my strategy if I was Andy.
By the way, don't sleep on that Kansas City offensive line. It should be with, now the Eagles offensive line. Look, Glenn, you're an old school guy. I think that's the best offensive line since the early 90s Cowboys. I think that's how good they are on the offensive line. But Kansas City's in the conversation for having the second best offensive line in the NFL.
They have a superb offensive line. The Eagles have the best offensive line in the league, and the Eagles have an offensive line. I was doing a comparison yesterday, and Jody, I may want to talk to you. Maybe we want to do this on Sunday. Run down the rosters of the 2022 Eagles, the 2017 Eagles, and the 2004 Eagles, right? The last three Super Bowl teams. And I was kind of in my mind going position by position. Again, maybe we can do this weekend. The amazing thing to me is Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce are better 5 years later than they were 5 years ago.
It's amazing.
Jason Kelce's a senior citizen. He just keeps getting better. And Mailata is better. Well, Jason Peters got injured in 2017. Mailata is better than what they had there back then. Their offensive line just keeps getting better and better. It's a tribute to Jeff Stoutland. It's a tribute to them drafting. It's a tribute to those guys. And I think you're right. Kansas City's offensive line is very good. I think that this is the biggest edge the Eagles have is their offensive line is superb. You said the best since the Cowboys in the 90s. I haven't thought back that far. Maybe it is. It's certainly the best I've seen in the league in the last 5 years.
Yeah, they've made it work for them to get to this point and have the record that they do. And yes, Stoutland University open for business, and any offensive lineman should be wanting to train there. I think an advantage for the Eagles coming into this game, Glenn, is their wide receivers against the DBs for the Chiefs. Now, I watched that entire Bengals-Chiefs game last week. We know that Cincinnati's got maybe the best triumvirate of wide receivers in the National Football League with Burrow throwing them the football. And they didn't blow out that Chiefs secondary. They kept them pretty much in check, certainly enough to win the football game, held Cincinnati to 20 points. They start two rookies at cornerback. Now, both have come a long way over the course of the season, but they're still rookies. So is this going to become a wide receiver game, do you think? It hasn't been really in either of the first two playoff games. Has it needed to be? Will it need to be in this one?
I said going into the last game, my pick for MVP was A.J. Brown. Well, I don't want to say he was a non-factor. He was fine. It wasn't a big factor. Hassan Reddick was easily the MVP. I'm going to say it's not going to be one of the quarterbacks who will be the MVP of the Super Bowl. It will be A.J. Brown.
Ooh,
and
going back.
That I am. I'm going
doubling
back
down. We like it back, man.
He's had the best season of wide receiver in this town since T.O., right? And I wanted to end on a flourish. I wanted to be that the two big acquisitions that they had Howie had in the offseason end up being the heroes of the last two games. And, I mean, you laid it out. Their cornerbacks are good, but they're young. Steve Spagnuolo is a terrific defensive coordinator, but A.J. Brown, that's your MVP.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me about AJ is I don't think he's 100%, Glenn. I don't think he's right from a health perspective. Now, he's not going to say anything. They're not going to put him on the injury report, but you kind of saw him tweet something at the end of the Giants game, which I think is where everyone was talking about his frustration. I think it was more about he tweaked something.
Yeah, I do too. And by the way, I just want to say one thing about the Giants game. He caught, I forgot, 2 passes for 23 yards.
Yes, I think it was 3. Yeah.
Okay. He blocked like hell in that game.
Oh, yeah. He sprung Devonta on the touchdown.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people in town weren't saying it, but there is a little bit of a narrative, diva wide receiver. He ain't a diva. He wants the ball. No, but when he doesn't get the ball, he doesn't sulk. He doesn't take the play off. And that's one of the reasons I love this guy.
Compared to diva wide receivers, A.J. Brown is not a diva. But he wants the football. He's like every receiver, every good receiver. He definitely wants the football. But
sure,
he's not gonna,
great.
Yeah.
I want him to want the football. I want him to have the football. MVP.
No,
What are my odds on that,
problem
Jody?
with
There's got to be a number. What do I get on that?
Yeah. Oh no. Anything not quarterback is probably going to be a pretty good payoff. I'll see if I can find it for you.
Now, you talked about the Giants game, Glenn. So I want to talk about the path and the schedule, because you have all these people that say the Eagles are the first team in NFL history to get to the Super Bowl without playing anybody, Glen Macnow. They haven't played anybody.
Yeah, amazing.
The Chiefs have a bad schedule as well. You hear it from that perspective. The 49ers had a bad schedule. They didn't beat anybody. They didn't lose for 3 months. It's almost coincidental. If you win all your games, it affects the teams that lose against you.
How about that? 16 more losses those teams had than they would if the Eagles hadn't shown up. I believe the regular season, the Eagles were 7-1 against teams with winning records, which I guess now means they were 9-1 against teams with winning records. Now, that includes the Giants 3 times. You can say the Giants weren't a good team. They made the freaking playoffs. The Eagles beat everybody they had to. The Eagles' losses were clunkers against 2 bad teams, Washington and New Orleans, and the game against Dallas where they didn't have their starting quarterback and the backup threw those interceptions. I mean, who played the elite schedule in the NFL this year? I don't know who it was. Yeah. The AFC East, maybe?
If everybody's a nobody, you can't beat a somebody.
Right.
And that's,
I take that as sour grapes. And, they wouldn't have beaten San Francisco if they didn't knock out the quarterback. Well, hell, they scored 30-plus points on that greatest defense in the history of pro football. Give me a break.
Yeah.
G-Mac, I'll give you the one that I found.
Yeah, they knocked out 2 quarterbacks, by the way. A non-aggressive defense as well. That's another trope.
They knocked out 1.5 quarterbacks, when you really want to be honest.
All right. Shot on goal. We got you. I did define, not put it, at least the spot I looked at first, not putting out individual odds, but you can just bet wide receiver and still get 6-1. So you get Devonta Smith thrown in there on top of it, and or any of Kansas City's wide receivers, which if they win one, shame on the Eagles. If it's not Mr. Kelsey as the MVP,
no, I don't.
For the
I don't think I want to put a lot of money on Kadarius Toney, but
on Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
No.
But I do want to visit Mr. Kelsey, because I've asked everyone who's come on, Mac, this week, previous week, anytime we talk about the Chiefs. We know how great Travis Kelsey is. He's the best pass-catching tight end in football now. He's one of the greatest of all time. I know that. You know that. John McMullen knows that. The world knows that. How does this friggin' guy get as wide open week in and week out when we all know he's the quarterback's #1 choice?
Yeah.
And he seems to be open by 2-3 yards every time Holmes throws him the ball. How is that?
Yeah, well, because he's that good. I'll ask you guys: is his game the same as Gronk's game? Is it
no?
Because nobody could cover Gronk, and nobody can cover this.
Gronk
guy.
was more physical, go up, throw it up. He got muscle a guy for the ball.
Right.
Not the same player.
All right. Yeah, he is often wide open, and you're thinking, who the hell? And that's speaking of the obvious, that's the toughest challenge the Eagles are going to have, right? You're going to have to cover him. You're going to have to double cover him. The good news is I don't think the wide receivers are that great that you really have to assign 2 guys to anybody. I don't think you obviously can't cover Kelsey with a linebacker. I'll throw it back. Who's covering him? Who's your #1
Corners,
guy?
baby, zone it up.
Yeah, man. I know you are gonna zone it up. You are, but is there somebody you're gonna try to shift over where he is? He runs back across the line. Who's going back there? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson?
More than anybody else, yeah.
Right?
He's going to be the guy.
Yeah, it's going to be, I hate to say it's going to take a village. Epsie's going to be involved. Chauncey's going to be involved. Devonta's going to be involved. TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, everybody. It is going to be, he is, a lot of people have said it this week. Travis went to Cincinnati in college as an option quarterback. He is tremendously athletic. So he's sort of that glorified, king-size slot receiver more than the traditional tight end you were talking about, like Gronk. Dallas Goedert's more like a Gronk type.
Yeah.
Like he can do both, and he's tremendously athletic on top. But Kelsey's like, He's as good as receivers. Catch. He's more like Tony Gonzalez.
You know what? That's a great comparison. And what do you have? He had 100 catches this year, something along those lines. It's
his numbers are
all right.
First ballot Hall of Famer. But let's talk
about. You're making me obsess about this, for God's sakes.
The Kelsey Bowl. You talked about Jason Kelsey a little bit, and there's so many narratives to the Super Bowl. Andy's obvious. One that's not as obvious, Glenn, is Nick Sirianni started his pro career in Kansas City. And when Andy came in, he had to let Nick go. Nick met his wife in Kansas City.
Yeah.
This Super Bowl is crazy. You've seen all the jokes this week about who went on with Barstool or Pro Football Talk and said the NFL is scripted. I forget what player. Arian Foster. It was great.
Yeah.
It was just like a Saturday night. He wasn't serious, by the way. For the fans out there, he was joking around. But man, there's a lot of stories here.
There's a ton of great stories, and one that really intrigues me that is getting play, but I think is going to get more play is the. Well, I don't want to say the changing of the Garden quarterbacks because Mahomes has been there for a few years, but with Brady retiring and Aaron Rodgers uncertain, and I don't want to put Matt Ryan in that lofty company, but he's done. I'm just trying to think the older quarterbacks moving out and the younger quarterbacks moving in. The 4 quarterbacks in the conference championships, right? When you add Burrow and Mahomes, were average age 25.
Yeah.
And you have Hurts, who is, what is he, the second youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl, something like that. You have, I think, we've seen it in the AFC, the rise of the good young quarterbacks in the AFC. Hurts now represents the NFC. And I think, a great storyline is the future of the position is being shown in the Super Bowl. And that's a storyline that I love.
And will be played up big time because not only are they the 2 youngest combined, but they're also the first time 2 African-American quarterbacks have started against each other. So you're right, the quarterback position, it's always the quarterback position, but it's kind of a different quarterback story this time. And I expect both of them to have good games, which means I expect a high-scoring game. Do you, G-Mac?
What's the over-under? You have any idea?
49.5.
Oh, I'll go over that, yeah. I mean, we can go over that, and it's not a high-scoring game, right? We can go 27-24.
No, that would be 51. That would be over.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We could. I'm saying we could. I said.
Oh, wait. You don't consider 27-24 high-scoring? Okay.
Right. And you've already made the over. So I think if that's considered high-scoring, and I don't, again, I think it's going to be above the over, and somebody will score in the 30s. Hopefully the team not wearing this stupid. Bear with me. Hold on. I'll be right back.
Off the red.
Yeah, give me a second.
All right.
I'm making my buddy uncomfortable. He's got to take off his Conshohocken red.
All right.
There we go.
There you go.
By the way,
sorry, fellas. Don't mean to hold you.
I apologize. And it was Philly's red that he was wearing, not Kansas City red that he was wearing. That was Philadelphia Philly red.
There you go.
Brewing.
That's right. This isn't exactly green, but it's kind of green. And I'm representing Delco. So there you have it.
There you go.
Okay. There we go.
He's always repping Glen Macnow.
All right,
Somebody.
so you brought up, Glenn, Super Bowl 52 before, and you talked about high scoring. Obviously, that one was 41-33. All the yardage back and forth, up and down the field.
Greatest game ever.
2 things I want to know. Is this team better than that team was? Is this 2022 Eagles team better than that one?
Easily.
And
Easily.
if they win another game in that vein, does Jonathan Gannon hear it like Jim Schwartz did? Oh, he gave up 500 yards.
Yes, of course. John, I think you referenced it earlier. This will be a shock to you. Jonathan Gannon has heard it every week all season. I mean, that's Jonathan Gannon is the guy, and we can dive into why, the guy who Eagle fans love to hate, even during his successful times. On the other hand, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl and they win it 27-10 or something like that, Jonathan Gannon holds Patrick Mahomes to 200 yards, and the Eagles have an interception or 2. Jonathan Gannon gets to ride on the front float, and everybody will throw beers and confetti in his direction, and not in anger.
That should be fun if that's the way it shakes out. Not sure. We're saying 27-24, and that would be a low-scoring affair as compared to what we think is.
Yeah, no, I don't expect 27-10, but if it were to happen, the next statue outside gets to go to Jonathan Gannon.
But if Jonathan Gannon and or Shane Steichen don't get a head coaching job, and it's surely looking that way, how lucky are the Eagles to have both of them coming back?
Yeah, very much. I thought Gannon was for sure going to Texas, and I think Texas made a great hire in DeMeco Ryans. It makes sense in 26 different ways. But it does look like they are not going to get a job, and that works out really well for the Eagles. Thank you very much. Because I'm sorry, one more thing. Because when we've seen teams fall apart, Andy's team fell apart for a lot of reasons, but one I thought was his great assistant coaching staff got stripped away, right?
Yeah.
All of those guys, the Harbaughs and the Fraziers and the Riveras and all, when you lose those guys and don't replace them with guys as good as them, you really suffer. And I thought that was one of Andy's downfalls. So keep them as long as you can.
Yeah. The coaching staff has done a tremendous job. We know that. It's not only Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen. You got to worry about Brian Johnson, Kevin Patullo, Denard Wilson. These new coaches still have to fill out their staff. So we'll see how that shakes out. But coaching staff versus Howie Roseman, who's more responsible for this?
Oh, I hate this question. And I've heard it. Is it Hurts? Is it Sirianni? Is it Howie? Because by giving it to one, I'm criticizing another. But I'll give it to Howie because he hired Nick, right?
I would give Jeffrey Lurie. I would give Jeffrey Lurie than Nick.
Okay.
Nick.
All right.
Howie was recommending Josh McDaniels, for those who don't know. And Jeffrey wisely said, Jeffrey wisely said, you know what? I don't care what these two guys say today. Long term, they're not going to be able to coexist. And I agree with Jeffrey Lurie. I think he made the right decision.
I'll stick with Howie because he had, for the second time, an almost perfect offseason. And all of those guys he brought in, the long-term guys, the short-term guys, have worked out tremendously. So that takes nothing away from the head coach.
And, oh, by the way, he was the guy who drafted Jalen Hurts. We know it's a team effort. It's a collective. But Howie's the one who sent the card to Commissioner in his living room, Goodell. So he gets partial credit on what the quarterback has done, too. I want to revisit a guy John just referenced. And that's Jeff Lurie. I remember sitting in the WIP studios, you and I, and we got a chance to interview Jeff Lurie shortly after he bought the Philadelphia Eagles.
I remember that.
He used the phrase gold standard. He wanted to make the Philadelphia Eagles the gold standard of the National Football League.
We roasted him after that, didn't we?
Yeah. We both shrugged our shoulders. We both rolled our eyes, and then we went on with it. I'll tell you, Glenn, that this game, Sunday, determines who is the gold standard of the NFL going into 2023. If the Chiefs win, it's Andy Reid and the Chiefs because he'll have been there and won 2 out of 3. But if the Eagles win and beat the Chiefs, they will have won 2 out of 5 and all the playoff run. And yes, Andy is part of that Jeff Lurie saga from whence he hired the team. I think the gold standard thing can only go back the last 5 years, but I think this decides it. Whoever wins this game is the gold standard of the NFL.
I think that's a great point, Jody. And I think now that the Patriots are no longer that, which they've been for so long, it is the position is open and the winner of this gets it. So I think you're right. You're spot on. One other thing, I think he said in that interview with us, if not, he said it right around the same time. I think one of us said to him, so your goal is to win a Super Bowl. And he said, no, Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Plural. And we thought okay, pal, bowls. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But you know what? Right now, bowls.
The new normal. It just started a little bit late, Glen Macnow. All right, I want to give you the last one from me. I know we kept you too long, Glenn, but
I got a 2-year-old grandson waiting for me.
Sorry, buddy.
I'm going to give you a tougher spin on this because Jeffrey Lurie, whether it's gold standard, silver standard, bronze standard, this has been, and there we go. Your Nick Sirianni.
There you go. There's my boy.
The grandson.
Say hi.
Say hello.
Hi.
Hey, bud.
Go with Nanny. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Whatever. The Eagles are one of the best organizations in the NFL under Jeffrey Lurie. I think we can all agree with that. But my question is, who's more responsible for this foundation? Is it Jeffrey or is it Andy Reid? Because everything the Eagles espouse and believe in can be traced back to 1999, in my estimation. Agree with that or not?
No, Andy's long gone. And, the same way I don't get the people, including good friends of mine and coworkers, who hold this grudge against Andy. I also think Andy's no longer relevant to the organization. No, I don't think
he's relevant, Glenn, but the foundation, his belief system, they bought in and they continued. Not that
I hear you. I hear you, John. But the Eagles have had, since Andy, they've had how many coaches?
Great.
Chip, Doug, and now Nick. Each of whom, like every coach Jeff Lurie ever hired, made the playoffs in his second year. No, I don't think it's Andy anymore. I think Andy is a fond memory and gets credit for having him on the right path for a long time. But no, it's Lurie's now. I disagree.
All right. I'm more on John's side here. The fact that they have stayed tried and true to build from the trenches out. And if they win the game, I think that'll be a big part of it. Because as you stated earlier, better offensive line, better defensive line. That's something that they've certainly done since Andy was here and have never moved off. All right, moving out to Arizona. The Eagles have had some problems in Arizona. Shoot, they almost lost to a bad Cardinal team this year. Yeah. If they didn't have the better of the two replacement kickers, they might have lost their undefeated season even earlier than they did.
Dicker the kicker. I love Dicker the kicker.
Yeah.
He did the Eagles solid and then went on, as a matter of fact, elsewhere. Does the placement the fact that it's a West Coast game, Arizona, does that have anything to do with anything, or am I just blowing smoke here?
No, because they're not playing a West Coast team. I mean, they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who are no more. They don't play in that division. They don't go out to Arizona anymore than the Eagles. Nah, I don't think so. It's the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is such a different cat in any way. You go out there early. You go through everything during the week. It's always a different stadium. It's never your home stadium. It will be interesting to see how many Eagle fans are able to get out there. That could have an effect. They certainly helped in Minnesota, and they, for what it's worth, outnumbered Patriots fans when we were down in Jacksonville. But I think, no, you can play this game on Mars, and I don't think it would have any different.
And by the way, the Eagles get the advantage because they're the home team, so they get to practice at the Cardinals facility, and
there you go.
Chiefs got to go out to Arizona State, and so if anything, the Eagles
plus they're wearing green.
Yeah.
And not the slow green pants.
We hope. I don't know that. We hope.
Well, yeah, they're one midnight green with white pants.
White pants.
That's already been determined. I know you and I are working together Sunday on WIP. Has the schedule been set for Super Bowl Sunday yet? Do you know how many hours in a row you're going to have to do?
I think I'm not working with you that Sunday. I think I'm only 2 to 6. Okay. So I think you're with somebody else in the morning. Enjoy. Oh,
so you're staying so focused on the pregame show. You're bagging me, is what you're telling me.
Well, they're sending me. We're doing it on site. On site would be Arizona. We're doing it at some very nice sponsor has agreed to buy from 2:00 on. So I'm going to be there from 2:00 on with a cast of thousands. I think a lot of the WIP regular guys are going to be there. I think they're going to get a couple of alum in there. I think it's being well paid for by a sponsor, so it's going to be a big and festive affair, and I'll be the ringmaster.
Very nice.
But I will see you this Sunday. By the way, just so you know, I just got off the phone. Kevin Nagandi of ESPN, local guy, is going to join us. Love Nagandi, and he said he's looking forward to talking to you.
What does he have to do with Philadelphia? like he doesn't wear it on his sleeve every chance he gets on
Well,
ESPN.
he's smart enough not to wear Kansas City red for an interview. Just do me a favor. Just run this part, would you? Look, Delco. Okay, there you go.
Guy, always has been, always will be. We appreciate him jumping in with us today. Mac, I'll talk to you on Sunday.
I'm going to play with the grandkid.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Glenn.
Glen Macnow is on Birds 365. And one grandkid note before we get to our next break. You did see the quote from Mama Kelsey, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That she said Travis thinks, no, Jason thinks she's going to root for Travis because he's the baby.
Yeah.
And she said, well, no, I kind of lean
He got the grandkids. Yeah.
He's produced the grandkids, which
Yeah.
Travis hasn't done yet. So,
Yeah.
and there's a chance that they could add another one to the brood this week, that Kelsey's wife is bringing her obstetrician to Arizona with her.
So he gets the advantage. Yeah. Everybody thought, and by the way, Glenn, Nick Sirianni, after the championship game, brought up all three of his kids, not grandkids, kids. And Taylor Sirianni has become a star for mimicking her father. Answering my question, by the way. And Taylor Sirianni became a star.
Yeah, that can happen for the little ones on the post-interview stage. All right, our stage is Birds 365. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We'll come back, continue to talk about the Chiefs and the Eagles. Hour number 2, Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com is going to jump in here.